Hello, I'm Casey Anderson. I grew up in Northeast Oregon in a ranching family. I'm currently 59 years old and I've been doing this basically all my life. We came to Bear, Idaho in the late summer of 2005, and previous to that, we did not have any experience with wolves. So, this perspective is strictly what we've learned along the way. And, you know, I like to tell everybody that with the wolves, when they were reintroduced, everybody got to start at zero. Everybody is totally naive about what these things can do. And so, as we were calving heifers and stuff, like in '06, we would have calves just totally disappear and we couldn't find them. And we would try to figure out a reason why or where they went or what happened. And you always go back to the experiences you've had before, like the coyotes or mountain lion or bears. And until you get the knowledge and see the different signs of how the wolves interact with these cattle, it you're just you start out very naive, and it takes a while to get that perspective so you can understand really what's going on. In 2008, we had our first confirmed wolf depredation. This calf was in our first calf heifer pasture. We had just moved these cattle to a fresh pasture, and we had a dozen head of calves that ran back, and so we just thought, well, heck, we'll just let them go back, and we let a few cows go back with them, and we'll go have lunch and come back and move them. Uh, this happened in the middle of the day, within an hour and a half of us being gone. Um, it really put an explanation mark on what can happen. Uh, this female wolf was collared. She was actually collared over around Chalice, and then came to this part of the country over here. She had came from the east towards the west. One big tree out in the middle of this heifer pasture, and these calves were laying in the shade. It came up and grabbed this calf, and you could just see the tracks in the ground from where the wolf grabbed the calf, and the calf actually drugged the wolf until the wolf pulled the calf down. When she started eating on this calf, she ate bone and all, pelvis bone, everything. And and so this was really a wake-up call for us. The you don't think of it happening right in the middle of the day, and especially when you was there less than an hour and a half before. But uh, people say that they're going to do this or going to do that. When you actually have a lot of wolves in the area, you're going to see the whole gamut of what they can actually do. In the spring of '09, we had confirmation from the APHIS people, or our government trapper, that they had located a pack of wolves with 12 members in the pack just north of the ranch. And so we were a little bit on high alert watching things, and as these cattle started coming through the main headquarters going up to later summer pasture, we started observing all kinds of wounds on these calves. And what actually we found what was going on was that the wolves had moved away from their den site and had moved into where these mature cows and the calves were, and started teaching their pups how to work on these calves. So, there's going to be several slides here that just show different bite marks and abscesses on these calves. Typically they're going to be up on the front shoulders, hind legs, that type of thing, and some of these slides that we'll be showing you is some of those deals. When these calves abscess like that, we got to pull them off with their mothers and keep them in the corrals and lance those abscesses and flush them out, every day, and have them on antibiotics, and there's no guarantee those calves are going to heal. It just takes the amount of infection and stuff in that system is just astronomical. You might get that calf healed up, and maybe 2 months later he'll break out with another great big abscess. So when it comes down to it, and of course in '09 we were only getting any reimbursement on the actual death loss. So if you have a calf that's just mortally wounded, we wasn't getting anything for them except for the extra work and time and labor to try to keep them alive. Because these cattle are out in large pastures and rugged country, we may not be there and see these when they're fresh. So what we're showing is some of the abscesses that we're noticing later on. So any one of these abscesses you got to lance, drain, flush, keep the calves on antibiotics, and flush them every day, every other day. And it's just a very time consuming, and what we're trying to do with this is just show you the different type of wounds that you may see. You may think that these wolves are only working on the baby calves. This particular slide is of a yearling heifer. She was going to be one of our replacement heifers, and this was down in Hell's Canyon where we found her. This shows the bite marks on the front shoulder, and we'll show another set of bite marks on her on the back end. This is the same heifer, only these are the marks from the same time, the same wounds, only this is on a hind leg, and you can tell by the spacing of the bite marks. That's one way that we can confirm that it was a wolf. This whole area when it was originally bit would have been just a big trauma area. But what happens is all that flesh dies, and then it just sloughs out, just falls out, and you end up with this huge wound. And one thing you may notice on here is that, yeah, this was going to be a replacement heifer, but she absolutely has no udder left. Her whole udder is gone, and about a 10-pound roast out of the bottom of her round. We were able to save this heifer, but then what do you end up doing with them? You take this one to the sale, you're not going to get a dime for it. So, it's really disheartening to see. This particular calf is a 400-pound bull calf. and he was up on our Forest Service allotment right along a well-used Forest Service road just a day or two before the opening of elk season. So there's all kinds of traffic on this road. When we had a hunter, we were down at the corrals working some cattle, and hunter stopped and said he seen this, and so we had to stop what we was doing, go up there and check it out. Took a tarp up and covered it up, and about an hour and a half, 2 hours later, my wife and I went up to GPS and take pictures, and the wolves had came back along that busy road and had actually pulled this calf out from underneath the tarp and started feeding on it again. And it's amazing. I mean, this is just off the road, and with that much traffic and people, and the wolves still came back. This calf was with a bunch of cattle that the elk hunters had seen, a couple wolves trailing it behind them, and this calf kind of lagging back. They were able to scare the wolves off, and it was about 5 miles from the headquarters. It took two guys, better than a half a day to go out with a gooseneck and horses and get this calf to a place where we could get him and his mother loaded, so we could get him in to doctor him. This was in the fall of '09. He probably 350 to 400 pound calf. We worked on this calf for a long time, and we healed him up. The following spring, we brought him up with some other cattle, and the wolves ended up killing him in 2010. So all the work we did to get him healed up and healthy was all for nothing, because the next time around the wolves ended up killing him anyway. That it's one thing that these wolves are working on the livestock and your livelihood. It's another thing when they start killing your working dogs that you depend on to do your job. This was a neighbor's dog that she was out day help for some other ranchers and noticed her dog was gone. When she went back and found it, there was not any puncture wounds through the hide of this dog. But as you can see in the slide, the blunt force trauma and the hemorrhaging around those bite marks, and just severed the backbone of this dog. And it's just it really hits home. It's really, really sad to see. You know what, with this ranch, I talked earlier about how we were naive at the beginning, and then we actually started having some confirmed depredations. And I think that the thing that's really critical is the amount of wolves in an area. And as the wolves expand their range and come into your region, they just keep multiplying until they become a pretty good size force. In '09, we had one confirmed pack that had 12 wolves in that pack. We had, on another part of our range, we had another pack that was from 5 to 7 wolves. And then there was another area where there was a whole nother group of wolves, but the Fish and Game and the wildlife officials never acknowledged that the wolves was there, because they didn't have any wolves in that pack that was collared so they could monitor. So they just keep expanding their range into areas, and they just happen to really like this place because we're on the edge of on the we're on the southern end of the Seven Devils Mountain Range, which is a wilderness area. We're also border the Snake River in Hell's Canyon, which is very rugged, and a lot of this country is pristine, and some of it there's not a lot of access, so it's good habitat, and they really enjoy being here. One of the other problems that comes up with the introduction of the wolves is the way the cattle behavior changes, and we've noticed a big change in how the cattle relate to us humans with our horses and with our dogs. They become way more aggressive and harder to handle. It just makes routine livestock handling much more difficult. You might get a group of cattle in the corral, and there could be some dominant cows in that group that'll just come out and want to run you over. We've had them actually come out of a bunch of cattle and come clear back to where you are horseback and start ramming your horse, chasing your dogs, and all these things that just makes the whole part of running cattle extremely hard. And if you can get them cattle out of that situation, it usually takes at least 2 to 3 months before the cattle start acting normal again. And so right along with that, we just seen how much stress these cattle were under, and it really started showing up in our conception rates and our body score condition of our cattle. We had cattle across the board out of 1,000 head of mother cows here that were a full body score less from one year to the next. And for us, with a low input type program to where we winter a lot of these cattle out on a winter range, and we really depend on them cattle being in a higher body score to be able to winter out. And once that happens and their body score drops down around a 4, we have to start supplementing those cattle. So not only are the cattle in poorer shape, they require more nutrition to keep them productive, and our conception rates is just plummet. We're down when with the high wolf presence, we've been down in the 80% on the conception rate. So our turnover is greater, and the economic losses are just staggering.